We have a very timely speaker this morning, our elected official, our county official, and so there are a lot of things that I'm sure she wants to say and that you want to ask. In order to give us time to do that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We have a custom of going around and introducing ourselves so that everybody knows who is here, where they come from, what they represent, and also the speaker knows as well the audience that she will be speaking to. So I will begin by saying I'm Elaine Chapnick, President of the Local Summit. Instead of sending the microphone around, will you just speak loudly, say your name, where you're from, and if you belong to an organization locally, identify that. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brian Kerr. I'm from Mamaroneck. I'm just here.
Okay.
Good morning, Shirley. Lynette C., the Summit Board, and continuing ed. And also just a quick reminder, today is the school budget vote. Everyone should exercise their right to vote at their local elementary schools. Polls are open till 9.
Thanks. Sabrina Fiddleman, Local Summit Board, LMC-TV, and the Hunger Task Force.
Janet O'Connell on Summit Board and at Oklahoma Center.
Leon Potok, Christine Village Leader. Mark Burrell, Climate Change and Environmental Services Engineering.
Laura Conlon, LMC-TV, Local Lives.
Jeff Negan, Summit Board, LMC Board. Richard Allen, I'm the pastor of Mamaroneck United Methodist Church for 5 more weeks.
Bob Hyde, Summit Board, and volunteered at home in the South.
Janet Buckbinder, Summit Board and Larchmont-Mamaroneck Radar.
I'm Erno, League of Women Voters of New Rochelle, and I'm Global Peace of New Rochelle, that's Catherine's district.
Great.
John Gitlitz, Summit Board, Hispanic Resource Center, and Purchase College.
Elizabeth Sanger, Summit Board, and Larchmont-Mamaroneck Human Rights Committee.
I'm Bill Lawyer, I live in Rye, and I write for the Rye Record.
Maud Seagull, Larchmont.
Carmen McAllister at Home on the Sound and Westchester Village.
John Bradley, Summit Board, and at home on the Sound.
Kate Francis Richards, Summit Board and Human Rights Committee.
Amber Kowski, St. Augustine Church. Sylvester Cuddy, Summit Board.
Linda Kalo, Larchmont.
Johnny Flume, Larchmont.
Oh, that's called sliding in a home base. Ann McAndrews, Mayor, Village of Larchmont. Good morning.
Doris Block, Summit Board, Larchmont-Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force, and Mamaroneck Traffic.
That's a tough one.
Great. Right. Nothing. You're next.
Yvonne Trapp, Mental Health Association Board, deeply involved in CASA, which is foster care children.
Paul Galvez, Larchmont.
Iris Green, Health Community Care.
Good morning, Chief Geiser, Mamaroneck Public Schools, Summit Board, Human Rights Committee, Larchmont-Mamaroneck.
Janet DeMacy with Local, good morning. Continuing Education Summit Board.
Mary Lee? Mary Lee? Mary Lee? Thank you, everyone. Do we have our 2-minute tidbit?
Well, it's only 2 minutes today?
Only 2 minutes. Jeff gives us a little bit of our local history to bind us together.
Okay, so the last several months we've been a park state of mind. We've done Larchmont Village, Mamaroneck Village, now we're in the unincorporated section, which has huge amount of parks. There's 93 acres of parks, grounds, and conservation areas. There's hummocks conservation areas, leatherstocking, Larchmont Reservoir, Sheldrake Trails. It's got the Colonial Greenway. I don't know if you know, they have a 15-mile trail that goes around from Saxon Woods all the way around to Eastchester, through Scarsdale, to New Rochelle, and back again. It's fabulous. But I'm not going to talk about that today. So I'm going to talk about that little park that's at Palmer and Weaver. And I'm really angry at the town of Mamaroneck. Because when I was about 10 years old, I used to play touch football there. Every weekend, sometimes during the week. A lot of us went to Chatsworth, and Chatsworth included that area of hummocks, Howell Park, and et cetera. But all of a sudden they started planting trees. And so we couldn't play football there anymore. But there's a little plaque that looks like a gravestone there. That's the end of the story. The beginning of the story is the driveway that goes up the right-hand side of that. And if you come down on Weaver Street from the bridge, and you have that fork right, you say, boy, that's forward thinking. Why did they have that fork right? Well, the reason they had that fork right was that that's Weaver Street. And it continued across the street, up the driveway, and curved left, and then took an S-turn.
Huh.
And why did it do that? Because in 1870, there was constructed on that site a non-denominational chapel. Chapel, it's called Sunday School, the Weaver Street Sunday School and Chapel. And it was not a Methodist, it was mostly Methodist, but they decided there was the intention to avoid supervision by the Methodist Diocese of New York City. And they did things like, here's from Larchmont Times, April 18, 1914. A series of services appropriate to the after-Lenten season will be held at the Weaver Street Chapel on Friday evenings at 8 o'clock. During the next 3 or 4 weeks, the following well-known preachers, a short, hopeful service lasting 1 hour only, singing of familiar hymns is a feature. Other preachers will be announced later. Unfortunately, the chapel burned down in 1929, and that was the end. The Depression hit. They didn't have enough money. In 1914, the Larchmont Avenue Church was founded. Cars were prevalent, therefore we didn't need to have all of these little local chapels. And the county came along and took a piece of the property and straightened out Weaver Street. And they did it by blasting. The whole thing was a big pile of rock. And they straightened out Weaver Street, leaving the driveway on the right-hand side and leaving the fork. And then along, the church decided, there were 3 remaining trustees, the church decided they didn't want to just sell the property and give it back, give the money to the Methodist Church in Mamaroneck, because they squandered the money up there, you know. So they went into a 3-way contract. The county bought the whole piece for $365. They blasted some more because Weaver Street, as you came up from the Post Road, it was rock on both sides, so you couldn't see anything. So they blasted it, made a level field, and by agreement, transferred the property to the town of Mamaroneck to make a park. Now, I have 2 personal things about that. Number one, in the early 1890s, my grandfather was sent down by the Methodist Church, Pastor Richard, in Mamaroneck.
He was a good Methodist, I hear.
Yeah, well, you know, I never knew him, but, you know. Anyhow, he was sent down occasionally to check on the Weaver Street Chapel and Sunday School. And there he met my grandmother and courted her, which is what you did in those days. So that was one personal thing for me. And then the last sole trustee fulfilled a promise that was made in 1941 when the transfer to the town took place, to put that marker there. And although I disagreed with the style of the marker, because it looked like somebody was buried there, my father was the last sole trustee. Thank you very much.
And now our featured speaker, Catherine Parker. Catherine Parker was elected to Westchester County Legislature in November 2013 to represent the 7th Legislative District, which includes Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Rye, part of Harrison, and part of New Rochelle. Legislator Parker is chair of the board's Environment and Energy Committee. She also serves on these additional committees: Budget and Appropriations, Labor, Parks, Planning, Housing, and Community Services. She owns and operates her own business in Rye, Parker's, a travel store. Ladies and gentlemen, Catherine Parker.
Thank you, Elaine. By the way, just a quick hello to Trustee Ernie Odierna, who's joined us from the town of Mamaroneck. And so I'm in my first 5 months, and it has been, I would say, a very, very busy time. As Elaine just mentioned, I'm serving on 4 committees, and 4 committees that are very busy and are getting down to a lot of business. Just a quick introduction. I invited Millie McGraw to come up and sit on the dais. Millie and I met last year when I was running, and Millie, for those of you in Larchmont, I'm sure she's no stranger to you. Millie has been very involved in a lot of environmental issues locally. She has served as the president of the board of Sheldrake Environmental Center. She's been on the Village of Larchmont Environmental Committee. And when I found out that I was going to become the chair of the Environment and Energy Committee, to which I was very, very thrilled, because that was an area that I felt really was where my passion is and where I really wanted to leave my legacy at the county. I immediately thought of Millie and thought, gee, I wonder if maybe Millie would be interested in coming on board with staff and becoming my legislative aide that would be focused solely on environment and energy issues. And to my delight, she said yes. So we have had a great 5 months together and have worked on a lot of things, which I will touch upon. I think before we talk about some of the environmental issues, I will get to the news of last week, which I'm sure many of you have heard about, and let's talk about Playland. So Playland has, as you all know, has been in the news for the last 4 years, actually, since the county executive had announced that he was putting out a request for proposals for the reinvention of Playland. And a Rye-based group, Sustainable Playland, was the group that the county executive had chosen. And it's been a group that I've been very supportive of. During the, from 2010 to 2012, prior to the selection, we had had a strategic planning group in Rye, and the vision for Playland that was originally expressed by SPI seemed to dovetail very well with the values that the strategic planning group had identified as things that they wanted to protect and ensure during the RFP process. Open space, public access to the beach, preservation of the historic buildings and historic rides. And so long story short, they were selected and things have evolved. In some ways, things have evolved, I think, in a good direction, and in other ways, I think things had devolved. And so the plan as it changed, my feeling was that there were good folks trying to do a lot of things and please a lot of people. And by doing that, they had compromised sort of their vision for what they thought would be right for Playland. And the plan was probably just not going to work. And it also was really very clear that the field zone was the area that was really the lightning rod for SPI. It was really an area that the neighborhood that was abutting the parking lot was very concerned that there were going to be impacts with flooding and impacts with quality of life. And it kind of, again, drew a big question around the process that the county administration, the county executive's office, was following to make their plan happen. And the idea of whether or not you could actually build a field house in a park is really a question that probably down the line will, if this continues, will lead to, I think, a lot of litigation. So my thought was, whether you think it's a great plan or whether you think it's a bad plan, we're 4 years down the road from when the RFP was announced, and in my mind, there's no win for SPI, regardless of whether they get the votes, because they will be tied up, I think, for a very long time in the court system. And that's not a win for Westchester County. That's not a win for the local community. That's a real problem. And it's not a win for Playland, because as long as there's been the talk of this reinvention of Playland, Playland has really suffered by people not, with the uncertainty of it. And in fact, I would suspect that somewhere in this room there's somebody that thinks at this point in time that maybe Playland has been closed for the last couple of years. I hear that frequently. And people don't realize that it's been open the whole time. It's open now for the season. And so the lingering uncertainty is not good for, again, the park, the taxpayer. And my goal is to see something in place in 2015. There were two other proposals that were a strong consideration by the county administration. One of them, Central Amusements, actually ended up becoming the partner for the amusement zone with SPI. And so they had put in their own proposal. My thought is, since it doesn't include a field house, we should vet them as we vetted SPI. There's another group, Standard Amusements. Standard is kind of an interesting hybrid. It's actually a hedge fund is the one that has made the proposal, but they've partnered with somebody who has expertise in the amusement park industry. They partnered with a man who has been running Cedar Fair in Sandusky, Ohio, which is a small amusement park, very similar in size to Playland, but which wins awards year after year. So my hope is that I can get my colleagues on the board to agree with me that we need to focus on 2015. We have an opportunity here, given the time, that we can move forward on the vetting process and allow the same degree of discussion and detail and analysis to their plans. And at the end of the vetting process, they will be ready to get Playland up to speed for the 2015 season. And both of those proposals have included a lot of putting money back into the park, which I really think, if you've been there recently, you know that poor Playland has seen better days as far as it absolutely has suffered, I think, over the years, many years, by the way, from a lack of infrastructure, upkeep, and it needs a lot of love and a lot of money. And I think a public-private partnership is the right idea. I will give the county executive credit that that was a good way to put it out there to get somebody to come in and make some investment into the park. And I do think that, and to no fault of our county employees, they work very, very hard and are very dedicated to Playland. But to have the expertise to run a modern amusement park, even an amusement park with sort of the history that is there, is a skill set that I don't think most people within our parks system bring with them to the job. And they do, as I say, they do their best, but I do think that there's a better way going forward. So I announced last week my plan of withdrawing my support. And again, for those that were not happy with SPI, I will say this: we're not out of the woods yet. I still think that in the next few weeks, we will know whether or not my colleagues agree and will get on board, and then hopefully either SPI will decide that, again, there was no win either way, and you could say it wasn't the right time for their plan, but that they will decide that they've been down this road for 4 years and it's not going anywhere anytime soon, and just maybe call it a day. So that's Playland, and I'm sure we'll get some questions on that. So back to environment and energy. Environment and energy, by the way, as I said, it was something that I had felt was really where my passion is. It's the type of legislation that I feel is looking for generations to come, the difference that we can make as a county that will we should be leaders in the environment. I'm very jealous of the legislation that New York City has done over the last several years that has really caused and created a lot of attention, that they seem to be very forward-thinking. You know, they're looking at alternative energies, they're doing large composting and cogeneration stations. San Francisco, another area across the country that has really sort of staked out a claim as being extremely environmentally friendly and forward-thinking, saving their taxpayers money. And my feeling is we've got 1 million people here in Westchester who are very smart people, really, you know, are used to having the latest technology, and it should continue on for the environment too. And for all of us, I think we all think of our families, our children. We want to leave a better environment. We want to leave cleaner water, cleaner air, cleaner land. And so that's really my mission. I have 2 years to really accomplish something, and I hear the ticking clock as I've been working, which is why I have brought Millie on, so that we can work even more efficiently and faster. So what have I done in the first 5 months for the environment? Well, one of the first things is I've been very fortunate that I've gotten to know this community, and I'm looking right now at Mark Carroll. Mark Carroll and I, Mark is the chair of the Environment Committee for the Village of Mamaroneck, and I reached out to Mark several months ago and had a really great discussion with him. And for those of you that are interested in doing things for your home, speak to Mark about what he can do an energy audit for you and an analysis. He's a font of information. And I will have to say it was one of the best meetings in that after I left Mark, I thought, well, I've been just given my first task of what I want to do. And that task is focused on cleaner air. It is banning number 4 and number 6 heating oil. Number 4 and number 6 heating oil is not the oil that you are using in your homes. It's a very, very heavy, dark, dirty oil. It is used in large buildings, and it actually is, the American Lung Association has said that the dark, heavy oil, number 4 and number 6, is really the cause of a lot of the pollution in the air, more so than car exhaust. This is really something that has caused a lot of difficulties for people with asthma or lung conditions, and it seems very clear that for cleaner air, we do not need 4 and 6 and the dark, heavy plumes of smoke that you may detect as you're driving down past a large apartment building. So Millie has been tremendous at putting together a lot of research, and we have had a lot of meetings with different groups to do the investigation and get the background. And I just put that legislation in yesterday. So you're really getting news hot off the press that that this will be something that it will be first vetted through my committee, and then we will vote in committee to send it to the board. But I anticipate that over the next few months, we will have many meetings that will be looking at this ban. And just to let you know, some of the buildings that are using number 4 and number 6 oil are, there's a school system, there's a hospital, and there are some apartment buildings right here in town of Mamaroneck. There are some large buildings that I think will see that it's, most of these buildings I think know that the time is coming to make a change, and I'm very few neutral whether they want to go to natural gas or just number 2. Should I wait for questions for the end or take?
Change their equipment or
No, it's a great question. So in some instances, and we actually met with a man who is a property manager for a lot of apartment buildings, and he's been president of several professional organizations that are based in Westchester and the area. And what he said is that most buildings can do a change that's not extremely expensive, somewhere in the $10,000 range. Some are more complicated, and the financial piece of it is not something that I have dismissed. It's an important component, and there are two things. One, in the course of the last 5 months, I've gotten to become very familiar with an organization called Energize New York. And Energize New York is actually what's called an Energy Improvement Corporation. And they have the charge of using property-assessed clean energy bonds to allow building owners to make the kind of energy efficient upgrades at extremely low cost financing. In fact, Westchester County, we've allocated $7 million towards this purpose by issuing qualified energy QECBs, qualified energy bond. What's that? Bond. Yeah, I know B's bond, but that again is an even lower interest rate, and they could do long-term financing for up to 20 years. And really what I've learned through Energize NY is that for the loans that they've given already in other areas, that the building owners are seeing that they're getting a reduction in their bills, and it's paying for the debt service that they are for the bonds. So it actually is not a cost that is felt right away, but it's definitely, as I say, the financing piece of this is not something that I have taken lightly, and so we've actually researched that as well. This is part of the whole presentation of this Clean Air Act. But that's been an important work that we've been doing. Another thing that I have discovered as I've been at the county is that our county staff, while very good at looking at our infrastructure needs, may not have the same focus on how to apply more energy efficient means that have an overall cost benefit long term. So I see more and more as infrastructure projects are coming before the board, they have what I consider more of a Band-Aid approach to solving a problem, where it's not really looking at it for a long-term energy efficient way. And my feeling is that I brought in the New York Power Authority, which is where we get our energy. And we do get a discount, by the way, of about 30%, being a NYPA user. But they actually have an ability to act as our energy director and look at our projects and determine whether there's additional cost savings by going to an alternative energy, and where there can be solar roofs, for instance. And my thought is that we either need NYPA to do, we used to have a second contract with NYPA to do just that, and that's actually when the first solar roofs were put on some of our county buildings. But since 2009, we haven't had that second contract. And I would either like to see another contract with NYPA where they resume that and do that for our county projects, or where we have somebody who is in-house who will again be utilized by our Department of Environmental Facilities, utilized by our Department of Public Works and Planning, who will look at our long-term goals and again finesse them so that we are doing things that are energy efficient and providing a real cost savings. I really believe that in the long run, there's a lot of money to be saved to the taxpayer. I was very thrilled that the resolution for the energy director was actually supported by 9 other legislators. So 10 legislators signed on to it, and that means we have the votes. We've actually sent it to the law department upstairs to get something drafted, and we are not waiting until the 2015 budget discussion. We think that we could actually see something happen sooner. So it's very exciting, and I was also told by somebody on staff that in the years that they've been on staff, they have not seen any legislation that right from the get-go, 10 legislators jumped on and said, yes, I will agree to this. So I feel like we've really accomplished something there. Then my committee also is charged with looking at the Tappan Zee Bridge. So that's been interesting. We had a meeting very recently with Brian Coney-Bear from New York State, who's the spokesperson for the state on the Tappan Zee Bridge. And we also included Tri-State Transportation, which is an organization that has been lobbying for the mass transit component for the bridge, and also for thinking in terms of making it for all users, walkers, bicyclists, and drivers. And I was really pleased that in our meeting on that there is a plan in place to have a partitioned area for walkers and cyclists, with some lookout points as you cross the bridge, and a wall that will be a blocker for wind and noise and traffic. So it has a really good safety component. And that was really great news. The other news is that the connection across 287 and the county, and the bridge, it will be made light rail possible, though they're going for rapid bus transit. But at least they are going in a direction that I believe for future will prepare us for, again, a better mode of transportation. And again, in my mind, we're in, it's one of those mega metropolitan areas. If you look at New York City as really a feeder to Westchester, we should be at a point in time where we are looking to mass transit as a way to get around and save our own fuel costs and really help the environment. So that's been another issue that we've been working on. And then recently, this is another area that has taken up a lot of Millie's time. We held a district-wide environmental summit on Saturday, May 9th, right? 10th, yes. And it was, the goal of the summit was very simple. And by the way, I don't see George Latimer here, but I took a page out of his playbook, because George has always been very good at bringing all the communities of the district together. And though I don't think he served as chair of the environment, I saw the environment as being an area where really, if we came together, all the municipalities where we had elected officials, the environmental groups, and we actually reached out to the school boards and the school environmental groups to really have everybody come together and learn from some of the environmental groups that are working within the county that had something to offer. We had one speaker who is in New Rochelle, actually in Ina's district, who in New Rochelle, who has done a tremendous job on a school recycling and composting plan. And there was a lot of discussion afterwards on both from elected officials on the municipal level and the school district level, saying this is really something that we want to focus on. And we had also brought together, by the way, a couple of people who, again, help with some grants and financing, understanding that every good idea that you want to implement, there may be an initial cost. Maybe there's a way to start that and help the municipality make that step. By the way, one of the first things that we had looked at, and I get this question from time to time when we talk about composting. I think many of us, just out of curiosity, who here in the room composts at home? and it's becoming more and more of a part of our lives, I think. It is, so on a larger level, I thought initially that maybe the county should be looking for a centralized composting facility. That is not the best model. I've heard it from many experts in the field that the better model is to have smaller, regional, localized composting. So that's the direction that we're working on. But getting back to the environmental summit, it was, again, a wonderful opportunity for the communities to learn from each other. Millie had provided an excellent spreadsheet that showed what different environmental laws each community had worked on and and you could check the boxes. So you could look at your own community and see, oh, great, we've done this, this, and this. We didn't do this, but other communities have done it. So they don't have to reinvent the wheel. They could actually reach out to their neighbor and start with a good template for best practices. So I think that is probably going to be a tool that will be useful. And the other thing that we did was we invited somebody that I've become very familiar with, Jean Hammerman, who spoke on green building codes. Because I think most of us recognize that there's sort of the macro of what we can do on a larger scale, and there's also the micro, what each homeowner can do, and low flush toilets and really energy efficient windows. And so she had the river towns of Westchester have done a fantastic job of really getting their communities to all pass these green building codes. And so we had those codes to give out to attendees, again, as a good template. So that was a very successful, I think, first meeting. And our plan is going forward that we will do these periodically. I think our next one will be sometime in the fall, and the focus may be more on flood mitigation and really more water related. So that is has been something that we've think will be a good direction for the district to go in. Next area that I'd like to talk about is affordable housing. We still are talking about the settlement, and I've said all along, the settlement is the settlement. We are talking about the Department of Justice after all, and I'm very convinced that the monitor who is working with HUD and the Department of Justice really wants to stay within the four corners of the settlement. That means 750 units within Westchester County. And that's a very reasonable number. I'm very happy that the town of Mamaroneck has been really proactive, reached out to HUD and said, what do you want us to do? What can we do? And did everything that was asked, and really did not see that that there was any reason not to move forward. And now there is you're off the list, which is fantastic. I will tell you this, very interestingly, whether we're just talking Republican or Democratic legislators, I think the legislators have felt that the tone from the top that's been set by the county executive is at this point really hurting our communities. It was just in the news recently that it looks like our communities again are losing out on millions of dollars in community block grants. So the number at this point is about $12 million in community block grants in total between 2011 and 2012. And some of our poorest communities are really being affected. So this is one instance where I see a bipartisan, coming together by the legislators to say, hey, we have got to step in here and sort of be the adults in the room and talk to HUD and let the Department of Justice know that Westchester County is not necessarily the ninth floor. Westchester County is us too, and we will be happy to help facilitate discussion with the 6 other communities that are still on the list. And we do not want our communities hurt. And we've actually been able to get an extension before we lose this money. We have an extension until in the next couple of weeks. We have sent a proposal to HUD yesterday, and so they're vetting it. We will have more discussion on it. But this was something that, as I say, legislators from both sides of the aisle have come to an agreement that we really need to step in because it is hurting us as a county. And I feel very good that we are working together. Community services, one of the committees that I serve on. I have to say, as an individual, this is also one of those committees where I am so blown away each and every week when one of the nonprofit organizations that's working within the county, working on whether it's child abuse prevention or whether it's working with juvenile delinquents and trying to help get them back on their feet. I am so impressed by the people of Westchester and what they are doing to improve our county. It has been truly a very moving experience, and 2 of the groups that have, I think, really affected me mostly have been, as I say, the Child Abuse Prevention Center of Westchester has been a great organization, and it's run on a very bare bones staff, 6 people, and a lot of volunteers. They service families within Westchester who have fallen through the cracks. They're not in DSS, by the way, the Department of Social Services. They're just families in crisis and really at a real brink. The families that are serviced right now are about 116, but they have a waiting list. And they have a very small budget. And I was really moved when they came in because you could just tell the dedication from their employees who have been there for 20-odd years and really working very hard. They had a fundraiser recently, and they did not meet their goal of raising $30,000. They raised $20,000. So I am giving them a little shout out. If anybody is interested, I really think this is an organization, the Child Abuse Prevention Center of Westchester. They could really use some help, and it's really, if I can use my position as legislator to put it out there that this is an organization that does great work for Westchester and helps families that, as I say, would not be in the DSS, then I feel like this is really an important aspect of my job. Another organization that I have met with recently, who hasn't come before the committee but is probably very familiar to all of you, is the Furniture Share House. I met with Kate Bialo last week, and I was so impressed by what she has done, and I immediately thought, all right, not only will we get it on the agenda for community services, and also do it, by the way, I think as a joint meeting, community service and environmental, because obviously if you're recycling, that's a good thing, right? So it's good for the environment. But I was also impressed that they have worked with the school system to create a club. We're just getting a bin started in the city of Rye, but they haven't really had a publicity kickoff yet, so nobody really knows that it's happening. So again, this is an organization that I think I will take under my wing and try to really make sure that people know the good work that they're doing to help families that are really at most at need, and give them a chance to have furniture that will give their families the feeling that this is a place that has stability and a foundation, and the letters that they have that really express the thanks and gratitude from their clients is just incredibly moving, and moved me. And as I say, if I can use my job to make this a better to help that organization, then that's what I'm going to do. So I think that kind of touches upon, taxes. Let's talk about taxes. Can't forget taxes, right? We're in Westchester. Who here was kind of surprised when they saw their tax bill that they had a county tax increase? Yes. Most people go, wait a second. I know that I read in the newspaper that Westchester County didn't raise taxes. We've had 4 years in a row of no tax increase. Well, not Town of Mamaroneck, not City of Rye. In fact, Town of Mamaroneck, your taxes went up this past year 7.75%. Our taxes in Rye, county taxes, went up 9.25%. And I had somebody call my office and say, what is going on? What happened? What are you doing? And let me explain it quickly, that the tax levy did not go up. The tax levy is $548 million. So all of Westchester County taxpayers, the cumulative amount from all of the communities is $548 million. But what gets us into the situation where our local taxes or our county taxes on the local level are going up is that there's the equalization. Some communities, their assessed property values have gone down. And in communities like ours, where I think on the local level, and Ernie, I'm sure you're doing a great job of managing your local government and making this a really attractive community, and people are coming into your community and buying your property and paying, top dollar. Our property, assessed values are actually going up, and that's where we get into the fact that we're covering the costs of some of the communities who have seen a reduction. And I will tell you this, that there's only one way that I think would, for tax fairness, make it fair, and that would be if we do a revaluation countywide. I think in actually the Sound Shore, we have at this point nothing to lose because our taxes have just gone up, up, up by such a huge degree. The problem as I see it is getting my other colleagues on the board to agree with me, considering I am the legislator for the most heavily taxed area of the county. Some of them are in positions where their communities have actually seen tax reductions. So I don't know that this will gain traction, but please, if you have friends in other communities, tell them for the good of everybody. And tax fairness, let's just talk about tax fairness. We'd like to see equalization countywide. And I really think that it's long overdue. Some communities, as you know, have not done a reval in a very long time. And if even for communities that have, obviously in the case of Town of Mamaroneck, who did a reval, it had no bearing on what happened with the county portion. So we really need to do this on a countywide level. Another thing that goes back sort of to the affordable housing issue that I think is a dangerous precedent that affects our taxes is, again, I was mentioning the community block grant money that we are losing. And I think this is an area that makes the county executive very uncomfortable, that there's so many millions of dollars that are being lost, again, because of sort of the digging in the heels on the settlement. And what he has said during the State of the County address was not to worry about the loss of the community block grant money. What we'll do is we'll just make a $25 million fund on the county level, and we'll pay for those things. So in effect, your federal taxes, which is actually what is going to be used to pay the community block grants, and that comes out of your income tax, you're going to be doubly taxed, because now your property taxes are going to be covering the costs of the money that your income tax, that community block grant money is just going to another community and not locally. So that to me makes no sense, and I again think this is another reason why we have got to be better at working with HUD. Another tax issue, again going back to the environment, I had a bond that was for a vehicle fleet replacement recommitted, because it was not in keeping with either the spirit of the law, which says that we as a county want vehicles that are, either hybrid, getting better mileage, and saving the taxpayers money. And they put in $1 million bond for a vehicle fleet replacement that had, no hybrid vehicles and some gas guzzling SUVs and just basically some sedans. And I thought, that's just, that's not the direction that I think this county and taxpayers want to see, and we can do better. So we had that recommitted, and we've just gotten back some information from the county. It looks like they've understood that we can be efficient, keep the dollars the same, but be energy efficient. So I'm happy to see that, saving the taxpayers money long term. And I think I'll end there and open it up for questions. Before I do, I want to say thank you so much to the summit for inviting me, but I thank you for holding these meetings. I've been coming to these now for a little over a year, and I have to say, it is a wonderful resource for me as an elected official for the district to get to know you as the community, see the good work that you're doing, get to know the organizations in the community. And each time I come, I'm always so impressed by the caliber of organizations, the discussion, and I think all of you are just tremendous leaders and models for your community. And so just a big thank you to all of you.
Thank you. We're open for questions. Any questions? Yes, Fran?
I'd like to ask a question about the composting initiative that you're encouraging communities to have communities on composting areas. Remembering that Larchmont Village used to have a village composting area and was chased away by neighbors who said it smelled bad. And I wonder what kind of pushback you're getting hearing about encouraging other communities and the village of Larchmont to do that.
That's a great question. I'll repeat the question for those that didn't hear. I was just asked about the initiative that we had discussed at the Environmental Summit about bringing composting to the municipal level. And apparently the village of Larchmont had at one time a composting facility, but they had some pushback from the neighbors that it smelled and there were some issue there. I will say this, composting has come a long way, and I've actually seen, I went to a presentation by the FCWC, the Federated Conservationists of Westchester, at the Greenberg Nature Center a few months ago. That blew me away, what's being done with composting. There are small composting modules that municipalities can invest in for a fairly nominal amount. $20,000 is, I think, a fairly nominal amount that really allows for composting on a large, on a municipal level that doesn't have the vector problem, little creatures, and that really has controlled the smell. St. John's University, as a matter of fact, has a composting program that if any of you are really interested, I think you could find this fascinating. They have had a open composting program that is literally within spitting distance of one of the main dorms. And the students are very involved. They have an environmental studies program there. And it is amazing what they're doing, and there's no smell whatsoever. It is managed composting that's open, and it works. It's a separation of several bins for the nitrogen and the oxygen and all that. I'm not the scientist here, but I will tell you that it absolutely looks like this is just creating black gold, as they call it, just good quality soil, which then they use for community gardens. It has so many positive byproducts that I really think Trustee Marlene Colbert was at the Environmental Summit. She particularly was very interested in the composting initiative that is going on in New Rochelle. And I think there was somebody from the Larchmont schools too that I suspect this is a direction that that Larchmont will be looking into very soon. Again, composting, the science of it has come a long way. There are so many closed systems, open systems. If you really want to get into it, you could look at something that does cogeneration, which is creating energy from composting. I mean, it is amazing what the technology and how it's evolved and what's out there. And yeah, so I think it will be happening, and the neighbors will not be feeling the same situation as before.
Ernie?
Between you and Nancy and the League of Women Voters, I can't get up any day without thinking of the environment. Which is, I guess, a good thing. Because there are lots going on. But one of the things at the summit that I attended, and it was interesting because the private conversations you have with the presenters is probably the most valuable part of the thing. Get to network and see what this other community is doing. And one of the things that struck me, and we tied it together when the League of Women Voters had their flea market at the Memorial Park, was the rain barrel concept. Flooding is certainly a big issue in this area, and any water we can keep out of the stream is a good thing. And so if you can retain it on your property, that's good. And we talked about rain barrels, and one of the things that's a deterrent is how much it costs. So it came to us, how about if the town helped subsidize it? If we bought 1,000 or 500 barrels, we could get the price down from X to Y. And now, the other great buzzword is cooperation, intermunicipal cooperation. Wouldn't it be nice if the county and the town and the villages could get together and say, okay, this $100 rain barrel will now cost $50? Because that's the big deterrent. People don't want to spend the money. Everyone is in favor of motherhood. There should obviously be more mothers and more motherhood, and we should keep more stuff on our property that doesn't mess it up or make it smelly. So how do we spend it? How do we get the money? So in the back of your mind, maybe you can chat with your fellow council people and see if we can't come up with a cooperative way of making rain barrels affordable.
Well, Trustee Odierna just brought up a great point, which is that what can we be doing on our own property to help retain water? And since flooding is such a huge issue for the Sound Shore, every little bit that's retained on our own property is helping the community at large.
Also with Long Island Sound.
Absolutely.
And not overburdening the sewer treatment facilities.
That's right, not overburdening the sewer treatment facilities, not having our wastewater go into Long Island Sound, not having our runoff go into Long Island Sound. And often our runoff, by the way, if you think about what we put on our lawns, what your neighbors are putting on your lawns, with fertilizers, this is really not helping Long Island Sound at all. The question, though, that you asked was interesting in that you mentioned specifically thinking in terms of first you were thinking, how can the town of Mamaroneck help, and you identified rain barrels as being a way to capture some of that water on your, on residents' properties, and then the ability to help the homeowner finance these rain barrels. And then you brought it to the larger picture. What can the county do to help? Which is a great question. So here's my first thought. One, I can put you in touch with somebody who is in charge of grants she's looking for how to help communities do these environmental areas, and I'd be thrilled to share information with you if you put together a proposal. And two, I think you touched upon the idea of shared services and really using the county to throw a big wide net across the whole county and say, here's an initiative that we as a county can do throughout, getting everybody on board to try to collect their own rainwater. And I think that's a great idea, and on a lot of levels, I actually think that is where Westchester County can serve everybody. I will tell you what, I will take back your rain barrel suggestion, and we will have a conversation and see if that is something. On the other hand, I will also say this goes to the green building codes, and helping, again, helping the homeowner look for these ways, whether it's low flush toilets, you name it, finding ways where they can do something on their own property that's going to be a benefit to the environment. But I like your thinking, and I think that's a great suggestion. And anything that comes before the county, I will take a very strong stand to make sure, if it's gun-related, that we are not opening a door here. And to your point about the county executive's stance on gun control, I think that this is an area where he and I probably are on opposite ends of the spectrum. And I think that the legislation that Governor Cuomo enacted was after Sandy was important legislation. I was proud of our state for having taken such a strong stand, and I supported that. I think a repeal of the SAFE Act would be ridiculous, and I will use my office and my voice as an elected official to say, no, we need gun control, and I'm glad that I live in a state that understands that, and I fear for the states that don't. I know.
I'm wondering about sharing. I remember coming to Westchester County and finding 46 municipalities for 1 million people and 40 school districts, and I appreciate, local control. But on the other hand, it seems like it's not cost effective to have all these different chiefs running around. And I understand that the planning department, which is kind of a centralized thing, was cut by the county administrator. So I wonder if you could address that issue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ina raised I will. Ina raised a great question, which is, is the county really able to affect being a sort of a centralized government when we have all these local municipalities and school districts, and is there sort of the redundancy? And you specifically brought up the point about our planning department and utilizing the planning department more effectively for the county and really saving. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, I know that there have been a lot of cuts and that the planning department has experienced a huge loss, or I think you were going there, but I will say absolutely the planning department has been decimated, and there are so few people working on that's why we have this huge backup of projects. It actually, in my mind, I understand trying to save money by cutting back on your workforce, but if you cut the people that can actually make a difference for, if you look at the whole dollar of your tax dollar, the planning department would have been the perfect area where you could actually have brought some savings to municipalities. And I point to flooding. And this is an area where I'm very frustrated because I have asked the question. We've passed now, I think, $15 million worth of flood mitigation projects. And some of that, by the way, has been for some small projects here locally. The Mamaroneck River was one. We just passed that, I think, in February. But the projects, I asked the question of our commissioner of planning, what are we doing besides these small cleanups? What can we do? Is there anything that we can provide? Engineering, what can we do to help communities with the flood issue? And the answer was nothing. At this point, we get consultants to do our work. And so there's nobody left in the office that is there to really do the heavy lift for the municipalities. And again, flooding is the perfect example of an issue because we're talking about watersheds where we all know it's not just water that's coming from within the municipality. It's coming upstream from other municipalities downstream. And it should be seen as a more regional problem and there should be a regional solution. So that means at some stage, I think that the Board of Legislators, my colleagues and I have to get together and decide, what are we going to do to address this problem? Are we going to try to beef up our planning department? And that to me seems like the answer. Again, everything is outsourced for the county, and if you ask, if you look at the worksheet and you say, who's doing the work, 9 times out of 10 it appears that it's all being done by consultants. And I just don't know long term if there really is the real savings there. So we need to rethink this. We really need to rethink what we're doing and how we're helping.
And continue on that thing, is there a place for regional thinking where we work with other counties and the city and other states, the tri-state area?
I will tell you on the Tappan Zee, we reached out to Rockland County, and certainly issue by issue there are things that we can work together. But I have to say right now my focus has been pretty much on the 995,000 people of Westchester.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank you for such a superb, inspiring presentation. Thank you.
Aw.
And I really.
So there's one more question.
I wanted that. My quick question
Okay.
was, I'm particularly impressed by everything you were saying, but your ability to work in a bipartisan way with other county legislators, and particularly on this issue about the settlement with HUD and the intransigence of the top 9th floor. And I would ask, is there anything that we can do? Can we reach out to other communities, to write letters? What effective, how can we help move this forward this week? Because it sounds like it's
Yeah,
very short.
it is.
Repeat the question.
So the question was again related to the board wanting to reach out to HUD and the Department of Justice and say, we do not agree with the stance that the county executive has taken, and we want to work with you to make sure that our municipalities are working with you and that we are sticking to the 4 corners of the settlement. And the question was, what if anything, can the individual do to help this? And I will say this, that one thing that you can do is reach out to your neighbors in Harrison. And I say that specifically because out of all the communities and the 6 that are still on the list, Harrison has sort of gone silent and hasn't really hasn't done what the town of Mamaroneck did, which is reach back to HUD and say, hey, we want to work with you. And really, as legislators, our goal is to getting the communities to work together. We've actually, we did reach out to the mayor of Harrison to say, do you really think you want to keep your head above the parapet? Because, the Department of Justice is going to be coming down, and I don't think you want that to happen. And I think next week we're going to have a meeting, but I will say a little pressure maybe to say, not only take the meeting, but agree that you'll reach back to HUD and try to get a conversation going and see if there's some room for some movement. That would be a help.
There was a question back here. Did you?
Yeah. So the question was a Playland question, and it was related to what are my plans? Would I revert back? I think that let's take that one first. No, no. I have withdrawn my support, and my feeling is it's the end of the road for me. We're done. And I would really hope that I get support from other legislators that we do not continue down this process for much longer. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. we are having our weekly Parks Committee meeting to vet the Playland Improvement Plan, and the discussion tomorrow is entirely on SEEKR, the Environmental Quality Review. And the questions, certainly there will be lots of questions asked. You asked the question last night about the long form versus the short form, and I think it'll be a very full discussion. But to your point about, asking for a full EIS, environmental review, I don't think we have the time for that. At this point, as I said from the beginning, we're 4 years down the path of this RFP, and I know that you love Playland as much as I love Playland, and I would think that you would want to see something in place for 2015. My feeling is we will have the seeker meeting, and we're going to have the meeting scheduled after that is with RI officials, and then the 2 meetings after that are on the finances. And I'm hoping somewhere between tomorrow and the financial meetings that the Board of Legislators will come together and that we will either, take a vote in committee and vote it down, or that, given that at that point there is no vote, that, SPI decides that they will walk because it's just going to be a long process. So I think that's the answer to that one.
So no environmental impact study?
Because that's, time-wise, do you want to lock up Playland for 2015? I'd like to see something happen.
I'd like to see something happen too, but I don't want something to happen that's going to involve a construction project of an 82,500 square foot building in a flood zone with no environmental impact study.
You're not listening, because what I said was tomorrow is the seeker meeting, and I think the seeker meeting is going to ask a lot of environmental questions, which I think will bring to many legislators' attention that there are a lot of environmental issues. So I think that your concerns are going to be, tomorrow will be a very important meeting that I think you'll see that this will be an unnecessary step.
Okay.
And that's open to the public?
Yes, it is.
You can also watch it live on the internet. If you go to the website nofieldzone.org, I will put the link up. The meeting starts at 9 a.m. tomorrow. You can watch it live from the county office building over the internet.
You can find it at westchesterlegislators.com. So.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming.